Good afternoon and welcome to Home and Give Virtual. We really hope you found this morning's sessions inspirational and insightful. In our next session, we're exploring the hot topic of sustainability. Get the inside know-how and tools to plan and create a sustainable brand on a budget. We'll be providing you with a well-rounded view and discussion from design and production to sales and marketing to help you build a successful brand at your pace. Please welcome Toyin Lakatu, fashion business consultant and founder of Onwards and Upwards, Fran Sheldon, fashion trend forecasting and sustainability expert, and Charlotte Bingham-Wallace, founder from Bello. Welcome.
Hello everyone, my name is Toyin Lakatu from Onwards and Up. I'm a fashion business development consultant and also working in digital with fashion, startup and lifestyle brands. Myself, Fran and Charlotte are here today to talk to you about giving you top tips on how to kind of create a sustainable brand and how to kind of build sustainability into your business if that is something that you want to do. So just to kind of give you some background to myself, I've worked in fashion and lifestyle with creative companies over 14 years, working on international business development, helping brands to develop marketing strategies, business development strategies, and international expansion. And I've been regularly kind of working with Top Drawer and other organisations in terms of running really kind of talks around different tips on how to help you guys to kind of get top tips to help you improve your business kind of going forward. I'd like to introduce my panel, who's going to be here with me today talking all things sustainable. I'd like to hand you over to Fran.
Hello, so I'm Fran Sheldon. I'm currently an educator and researcher at UCA in the business school. Before that, I was head of education at Edited, who are a trend analytics company. Before that, I worked very much in-house, freelance as a visual merchandiser and also within product-based storytelling. Before that, I worked very much in more kind of sustainable fashion activism. So I worked for Fashion Revolution as a researcher during my time as a student. And before that, I worked in costume. So I've had a kind of a nice whistle-stop tour around the idea of construction all the way into the fashion industry, and very much preoccupied at the moment with more fashion futures and thinking about aspects like cultural appropriation and what's next for the fashion industry. So that's me.
Charlotte.
Hi, I'm Charlotte. I'm one of the co-founders of From Bello, which is a British-Brazilian based company which is focused on fashion and kindness. So we take materials once destined for landfill and give them a second life with things like seatbelts, car seats, plastic bottles, and we refurbish them into beautiful accessories. Now, the thing that we really focus on is we really believe that everything is circular. So during our journey to create our product, we really believe in working with our artisans and giving them fair wages and working with them to help progress and work up through, from where they are to help their families live dignified lives. And then we believe in reinvesting back into the community by donating meals to the homeless and in need, or to a cause within which community that we're working with, which is really, really important to help the community thrive and grow. So we work on two things, so working at cleaning up the environment and repurposing materials, and then also our big social impact. They're two things that we really, really celebrate and work towards. We've been working for 2 years now, and actually we're going into our third year, and we won the Best Green Handbag of 2019 out at what we like to call the Handbag Oscars, but is the Independent Handbag Awards. And we've been featured for our work in lots of articles such as Forbes magazine, we've had TV interviews on the BBC, we've been in You magazine and a few other fashion articles. It's been really, really exciting.
Brilliant, great, thank you. So the reason why we're kind of talking about sustainability today, and it's something that was brought up by Abigail, is that obviously there's quite a growing interest in this area. I think we've kind of seen over the last couple of years, the growth of sustainability, and we've seen lots of big brands kind of latch onto it as a theme and trying to kind of capitalise on this particular movement. But I think, in terms of how it's kind of evolved and how we kind of continue that has been an ongoing discussion. And with the likes of, the fallout of COVID-19, I think consumers and brands are kind of thinking of a new world order in terms of how we construct our businesses, and how, as with Charlotte with Bombello, has kind of talked about, the circular economy, and how we can kind of create businesses which are much more kind of people orientated and putting people before profit. One of the figures I've seen recently by WGSN was they found that 75% of consumers kind of were looking to kind of invest in brands that were much more focused on investing in, people rather than just creating profit. So today we're going to kind of talk a bit more about sustainability in lots of different kind of formats. Just to start off the conversation, for Fran, in terms of, you've been around for quite some time, so to speak. How have you seen this kind of movement in sustainability change, and where we've kind of got to now, so to speak?
Yeah, so it's been really interesting. So back in the day when I was more kind of working in the idea of fashion futures, which at the time only really entailed trends, it was very much seen as a trend. And I think you can still see the remnants of that in some businesses that added a sustainable line to their business. That's very much that kind of old hat thinking that this was something that was going to grab a certain amount of the public, and that it was an interesting thing to put some money into. And gradually they've started to see that it's not just a certain aspect of the public that's growing. That's not just a certain kind of person. More and more people are educating themselves, and so more and more people's entire consumer base are interested in this. So you can't just add one part of your model to it anymore. And it has to be fully embedded in everything that you do, because people are starting to questioning with the kind of advent of the social media, that actually people are questioning brands now. It's not just a one-way conversation where brands are talking to customers are talking back. And so you have to be quite 360 in your idea of thinking nowadays. And I think that's been the biggest change. You can't just do it in one small way. It has to be every single part of your business. You have to think about it in everything. Otherwise, it really is just, what we call greenwashing in our kind of area of research. So that's probably been the biggest shift, I think, is that understanding now that it's not just a trend. It's not just one part of the industry. For example, fashion, it's not sustainable fashion. It's gradually becoming just the way you would work if you were going to create a fashion brand now. So that's been a nice sort of celebrated point, but some of it's also been a bit slow. So we're still waiting for things to catch up on that as well. So, yeah.
And when we kind of talk about greenwashing and trying to create a 360-degree circular economy, that, in an idealistic world is where we all want to kind of get to, right? We want to kind of have this movement where there's no waste, there's no emissions, everybody's being treated fairly, and there's no negatives in any processes in which this is kind of going through. But that's a very long-term journey in which businesses have to kind of go through. So, in terms of you, Charlotte, kind of going forward, how have you, rather than trying, I know ultimately from Bello want to get to have a 360-degree circular economy, but what aspects have you taken forward within your business that you can kind of work with now to kind of show and demonstrate your journey within sustainability?
So I think particularly if you're a small brand, a new brand, and you haven't got a lot of investment, you have to set yourself goals and start off with things, piece by piece, and be transparent with the customer in terms of showing like what you're aiming to achieve. But I really, our company started as a social impact company. We were inspired after working with some of the poorest communities in South America to try and make a difference, to try and help these people get out of the circle of poverty. And my background before I retrained and started working in fashion actually was very far from fashion. I was a physiotherapist. So I went on this big learning journey and had no awareness about production, the fashion industry, how things are made. And on that journey, me and my business partner, Maria, we suddenly were like horrified at the fact that we were trying to help one community. And if we were going through like the normal processes, we would end up hurting another, depending on like what chemicals we use to dye the products, what we were using. So it was at that point, we're thinking, maybe we should stop. Like, maybe we shouldn't, we don't want to create a product that's going to cause pain. Actually, I think the most important thing is thinking about the actual design of the product, what materials you're using, where you're going to source them from, like how are you going to create it, and what impact is that life cycle of the product going to have on the community where you're making it, and then also, like in the future, like when that product's life cycle has ended, what can be used, what can happen at the end of it. So we decided to use upcycled materials to start off with, materials that already exist. So we weren't using any virgin materials, and we didn't want to use any dyes in our process. So everything that we use is like from the color that already existed. Now that's my business model, but I think it all comes back to that design room and looking at what works for you. And there's a figure, I think it's from, I can't remember the name of the school, but there's a fashion school in LA that said that 90% of waste, comes from the decisions that we make in the design room. And that, I think we have to be really thoughtful about our products and how we develop them, how we produce them, and that whole kind of process towards it. I think the times of making products in the fast fashion way and being careless is over, because we're all recognizing, particularly with the highlight of COVID, and we're seeing like the effect of, people working in sweatshops, even here in the UK, and how that's affecting people's health, their livelihoods, their pay. That isn't acceptable if we're trying to move forward into, a caring, respectable society. And that's what, we have the luxury of being in our country, a wealthy country, to actually, be able to live this way. And we need to make sure that if this is the way that we expect to live, that if we're buying products or producing products, that we are passing on our expectations of living onto our employees.
Yeah, that's really great. And you kind of talked there about transparency, which I think is really important, and I think, there are lots of different ways in which we, sustainability is quite a broad term. And I think, everybody in their own kind of way is trying to latch on to that, and trying to tag their business in some kind of aspect around sustainability. But I think there are other areas in which businesses can maybe focus on to kind of start their sustainability journey. And it might be about transparency, and showing and open up your business in terms of supply chain. One of the things I found recently, working with a company who's doing some market research, and actually they're an interiors company who were doing some research around, kind of creating a sustainable proposition value for their customers, because they felt like, furniture interiors, there's going to be a massive market for people that want sustainable furniture, but actually when it came down to it, we did the market research, we found that actually it's more about price and comfort, and sustainability was right at the bottom of the list in terms of customer priority. And it's about trying to meet that consumer behaviour gap between what customers say they love and desire and think is really important, to the actions they actually implement. But what we did find out from the research was actually customers were really interested and engaged to hear more about their processes and transparency. Where do you source your products from? Are the workers being treated fairly? How many air miles, whereabouts in the world is being shipped from? What happens to your products at the end of life? So they've tried to look at other ways within their business. So sustainability isn't what they're going for at the moment. That is part of the journey. But ultimately, it's kind of taking customers on that journey to get to the sustainability at the end point, so to speak, kind of going forward. Have you found that within your work and within discussions you've had with people?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is that you have to create a product that has value to the customer. If you're going to create there's lots of, I don't want to relate any other companies, but there's lots of companies that are out there that are just creating for that quick buy, that quick purchase, and it hasn't got longevity to it. So I really, really believe that design-led is the most important thing, and creating a product that lasts a lifetime is what the consumer's looking, not necessarily a lifetime, but is high quality, and that's what the consumer is looking for, and they'll see the value. It's also about your marketing as well, how to really, really look at your product and how to exhibit it, to the consumer to create value. That extra bit of sustainability is like something that's kind of like the cherry on top that people are like, oh, do that. Like I really think that if you create something that is like a kind of disposable product, and you're charging an extortionate amount for that product, then you're just kind of throwing back into that fast fashion cycle. So I think there's a few different key things here. So design led, and then marketing, being transparent and showing not only how things are made. I think that's so important. And for me, I get so excited about the whole design process, and I think a lot of people do, because we've kind of lost the sense of knowing how things are made as a society. Even when we think about, if we look at even like food and where food comes from, we've got such like a dissociation of how things are made. So I think this is like a real interesting topic, an educational topic, and seeing like the whole kind of connecting people with the whole process again. So I think for anyone starting up, it's really thinking about your target audience, who you're trying to reach, and tailoring that product for them to make it a really worthwhile purchase. And then throwing in the sustainability, like teaching them about why this is extra special compared to your competitors. So looking at your competitive landscape and seeing how they do it, and then thinking about how can you show the value of your product more than that, and then then you have that extra selling point. Actually, if you buy this product, not only are you getting all the things that you want, but actually we've actually are helping people. We're helping people have a decent life as well. But it's kind of like you're wearing this product as like a superhero cape. It's like really showing the consumer how to see the value, if that makes sense. Yeah. I think I've said the same thing about 5 times. I apologise.
That's fine.
I think we were kind of circling around that idea, isn't it? Is that in 2020 and maybe even in 2010, I would have argued the same thing. But sustainability and your ethics cannot be your USP. That's absolutely not okay. You can't just create a business like based on that. You have to be product first, exactly like you say. You have to be solving an issue as well. You can't be doing something that's adding to the problem rather than solving it. You've got to think about that balance of what you're doing, really. And then I think as well, sort of linking to what you were saying there, is that idea of, when I was saying about being 360, but it's being 360 in one thing. You can't be everything to everybody. No brand should ever try to do that. And that goes the same with sustainability as well. So, and the best way to do that is by deciding what your ethos is. Your ethos might be purely ethical, which is a very different thing from, say, sustainable. And a really interesting one aspect of that is vegan. So there's so many vegan products out there that are inherently not sustainable because of the way they've made the product. For example, shoes, there's quite a few that are plastic based, for example. So you have to be led by a central ethos, and that will help make your decision making for everything, like you were saying, Charlotte, like marketing. It's all got to connect up, and that 360 comes from that. And I must admit, working with students, launching new brands, very entrepreneurial, it can be very frustrating when they've done everything really, really well, but then they didn't think about the packaging. And for someone that's bought into that product, that has sort of, they've read everything on the internet about that brand, that, the brand themselves have been very transparent, they've put a lot of effort into it, but the product is packaged in, bubble wrap or polystyrene or something. And it's just, that small aspect is a huge aspect for some people. So you have to really think about everything. So I'm, totally in agreement there with Charlotte, that idea of considering all bases and making sure that you're true in everything you do.
Yeah, and also it's really important, and I find working with brands and with businesses is it kind of all seems small businesses tend to do themselves a bit of a disservice, because you kind of focus on developing and designing the product and pushing it out there, but actually you forget to kind of tell people your story. And that's what's so beautiful about From Bello, is that from day one you have always talked about your story. You've talked about the ethos of the brand, the people behind the brand, where the brand evolved, and your brand values. And I think we now live in an age where actually your brand story is your currency. That is, in some ways, your unique selling point. That is what differentiates you from everybody else that's trying to tag on to transparency, sustainability, and whatever else. So it's really important as businesses, if you are going to go down that route, or whatever route you're going to go down, it doesn't have to be sustainability or kind of, what we talk about today. But I find that lots of brands, you just don't talk about your story, and it's kind of like it's this dark hidden secret that you just don't want anybody to know about. And it's kind of like, you need to be telling people, because if you're not communicating it, then people aren't going to be looking for it. So it's really important. How do you feel about that, guys?
Do you want to go first, Fran? Or so I really believe branding is essential to when you're starting up a brand. And I can tell you, like, Maria and we're on like a branding journey right now. And we are, I can put my hand up and say that we are working towards being perfect in sustainability, but we're not there yet. But we've got aspirations to work towards it. But it's really important to find out what your why is. Like, why are you doing this? And authenticity is key. So, we saw a problem and we couldn't return to our original lives, knowing that there were these people suffering that we've worked with, and this whole community of people. And we decided to use our international friendship of, I don't even want to tell you how long, but it's over a decade, to try and help this community. And that's where we first started. And it's all about the community, because we were trying to, and we couldn't. We believe that real beauty shouldn't cause pain. These are all stuff that's to do with what we really believe. But being able to communicate that is really, really hard. And my biggest advice for anyone is to get someone external to come in and just have a look at your brand as a whole, and tell them your story, everything that you want to talk about, because they'll be able to pinpoint the things that that you need to say. Now, this can start off with how we did it. We went to markets. We're not we haven't gone down I think it's quite a typical route, but people have told us it's not the typical route for a fashion brand and for the prices that we charge. But we went to the market and we started talking to people and just watching what their reactions are. And that has taught us how to communicate and how to find the things that really excite people, and find our brand communication. And then we've worked with people. We're actually working on a branding journey at the moment, and we're working with someone external, because when you're sat in the brand and you're so passionate about it, it's sometimes hard to actually find the clearest ways to communicate. So working with someone external, although it's an investment that's going to have, a big return, because it's all about trying to connect with your customer. And when you're in that situation, it's really hard when you're so passionate and you want to tell everyone everything, to really narrow it down and funnel it down into a really clear communication pattern. Being true to that and being consistent is key. Like Fran said about, there's different types of brands out there. You find your sector and you talk about it, you be passionate about it, show your expertise about it. It's what, will differentiate you and make you strong.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think as well that aspect of storytelling, which, Toy and you say often gets left behind, a lot of that can be to do with shared value as well. So some really good examples are, for example, surf or water-based brands, swim brands, for example, that work with ocean plastic dredgers. And you know, that's tapping into who their customer is. They understand who their customer is. They understand what's really important to them. People that do, for example, river swimming and things like that, and doing more kind of philanthropic based elements of your brand that feeds into those. You're then speaking directly to your customer, and you understand who your customer is as well. And I think you've also got those weird worries about being small. So a lot of independent brands don't want to tell the story about their smallness, tell the kitchen table story, and they kind of leave that off, and that's been a huge detriment. I'm a friend with someone who's got a brand, she won't mind me saying, Zola Amore, and she said that she originally left out that her mum made all the clothes. She didn't feel like it was helpful to the brand, but actually it's massively helpful, and that's something that she's hugely embraced now, and it's really helped the image of the brand and the understanding of the kind of hominess and actually the smallness is massively part of it. And I think that kind of idea of wanting to hide the smallness and having lots of different, you know, names, oh, this is my marketing person, it's you just on a different email account or whatever, you know, don't put loads of energy into that. That's not necessary. Don't put loads of energy into trying to look, you know, big if you don't need to. You know, I think more and more we need to embrace the small, embrace the community-based businesses, and that's something that really is more exciting than it is a detriment to a brand. So that's another thing I'd say as well, is don't waste too much energy trying to look huge.
Yes, talking about we rather than just me.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we. Who's the we in the room? It's like, it's just me.
Yeah.
but I think as well, kind of coming back to the whole brand story, it also adds currency in terms of, if you decide to kind of go down that sustainability route, and you are looking at, you know, the whole kind of supply chain, the design of your products, you know, and I think a lot of businesses, whether they're starting out in that route, they want to change and kind of add an element of sustainability into it. The costs, you know, and it's kind of like, well, you know, what I was selling before was this price, and now it's selling at this price up here. And I'm, you know, and I remember with you, from Bello, and, you know, kind of talking to you guys, and you know, it was kind of like, if we you know, price ourselves too high, then nobody's going to want to buy us. But ultimately, you kind of got to, again, like Charlotte says, it's about finding your customer. And it's about, you know, those customers that believe in sustainability and believe in, you know, buying into the story. They're not going to question the price of your products, you know. And, you know, so again, one kind of comes back to the whole design element. You know, you need to kind of consider, you know, the designing of your products, you know, whether that's clothing, whether that's home interiors, whether that's giftware. But also you need to kind of think about, you know, there is going to be an added premium to having that sustainable badge added to your business. But, you know, at the end of the day, you know, we want to kind of get to a scale where we are selling quality over quantity, and that people who are buying from you are buying, you know, because they want to have it for a lifetime, not for, you know, a one night kind of, you know, a night out and then we kind of throw it in the bin kind of mentality. And I think that's something that needs to kind of break in this cycle, is that, yeah, sustainability in some cases is not expensive, but as part of that, we have to make sure that, you know, we are telling our story as to why it is the price it is.
Yeah, definitely. I think, you know, we went on a big learning journey. So we started off underpricing our product, and, you know, that was a big learning curve for us. I think one of the things that I would advise everyone is to look at the price of your product and have a look, because it is more expensive. Like, when you're paying people the wages that they should be paid, and you're giving them the opportunity to earn a wage that's going to help them fund their children go to school, that you're actually reinvesting back into the community, if you're like us, you know, like, that's expensive. There's no way around that. You're not a fast fashion company. And if you're working towards that, or if you are, like, I mean, it's something that your product will still be expensive, you know, if you're trying to shift that much. But I think, you know, even when you look at sustainable materials, the technology is new, or it's done responsibly. So the waste waters, I mean, it's something like, out of manufacturing, 90% of waste waters, which has chemicals in, isn't disposed of properly. And this is mainly in, you know, lower economic countries. And, that can cause so much pain in terms of cancer, skin conditions, respiratory conditions. This is like the real hard facts of it. But that costs more. We don't need to go down like as such, like you should buy a product because it's going to stop cancer. Like, I'm not saying that you should say that. But, like, I think educating your consumer is really, really important. When you're looking at your price point, and like Toyin was a massive help for us in looking at that, you need to look at, your slice and cut of it, because the effort that you put into it, look at your marketing costs, like your website costs, your event costs, and that needs to be integrated into your price as well as your wages. And when you're looking at like the I've forgotten the word for this, but when you're looking at, your projections, you need to be looking at, what's your break-even point, covering your costs of your company, but then also add in what you're like what's the minimum wage that you want to earn from this, but then also what is like your aspirational wage as well. That will then look at how many products that you're producing or need to produce to get to that. And you can look at it from a sustainability angle. Is that right? Like, should you be producing that many? You need to change the price of your product to achieve there. Is it viable? Are you actually going to be able to be viable as a business to get to that point? And when we're looking at the amount of product that you're producing, you then need to look at, like what is, and you might not get this straight away. This is not saying that you need to do this all at once, but what is the life cycle of that product? What's going to happen to it when the consumer doesn't want to have that? And that's something that can actually be like a really cool integration into your company. What is the, it shouldn't be like oh my God, what are we going to do with it at the end? But, you can have a look at schemes that you can build into it. And this isn't something that we are doing in terms of we've got a scheme set up. It's something that we're looking to build into a goal that we're working to achieve. I think when you're, like we're looking at how, because we make bags out of seatbelts, if someone doesn't want that bag anymore, can we use those seatbelts to get another bag? Or can we, think about how we can recycle them? They're made out of like plastic, basically. So, is it going to be chemical recycling going to be alive soon? That's all being developed at the moment. And some of the technology isn't there for us to be 100% perfect yet. But I think they're all things that we can look at and also assess as a small company. And, but the important thing is knowing that you can make it sustainable in a sense of financially for yourself and making it viable, and also knowing what your big impact will be as you grow to be able to pay yourself.
But I think as well that really resonates with me, with the idea that, a higher priced product is the fact that you guys are really considering those aspects. That is part of what that person is paying for. They're not necessarily, it's not the old fashioned way of being a consumer and the relationship is the product and they take the product away. It's actually a relationship with you as a brand. And so things like repair schemes or things like in-cycle schemes with you, that's all within that cost. It's part of that aspect. And so all of a sudden what you're doing is you're changing the value narrative away from being completely attached to the product and being very much a kind of a brand coalition between the customer and the brand. And then all of a sudden those prices, even if you can't get through on the idea of the education, and that will just come with time, but the relationship in itself then starts to make sense, and so does the kind of the cost that comes with that as well. It's the idea of lifetime, and it's more than that one-off purchase. And so as soon as you start acting that way, and it might have felt like, okay, like you say, some of these conversations are not going to happen at the beginning. These are going to happen as you go. You're not superhuman. You're learning, especially if you're a new brand. But being always kind of tapped in to that product and who your customer is allows you to have those conversations and allow you to start building more into that relationship as well, which is going to end up helping people and planet just by naturally being that way.
Yeah.
I think it's just communicating that to your consumer, like you said, is going to get them to be, I think it's okay not to be perfect. And I think it's okay, like you said, with Solar Amore, you know, that kind of like small business vibe, like telling the story and like sharing your aspirations and your goals that you want to achieve, because people will want to get behind you and they'll want to be like, okay, this is what they're working towards, let's see what happens. And sharing, you know, might not want to share every single aspect of your business, that's okay, but you know, just sharing a bit of the journey with them as well. And you know, and I think that human side of things, with you saying, this is what I want to do, I'm not there yet, but I'm gonna reach there. I've got to work it out. I think people these days really appreciate it. You see it, this is a bit extreme, but you see like with a lot of celebrities, they're kind of seen as being almost inhuman, and like in a way they've portrayed themselves as being so perfect all the time that people expect, like as soon as they make a blunder or they're suddenly seen as being imperfect, they get so much like public hate, which is awful. But you see it, whereas you see the people who are more human and they've made a mistake, you're kind of like, well, you know, a lot of people respond, well, they're human at the end of the day. And I think as a brand, if you're creating that kind of your bigger than life kind of scenario, or like that image, then you kind of, as soon as you are seen as not being perfect, people won't trust you as much as if you're going, hey, I'm not perfect, but I'm aiming to be. I'm gonna get there one day, and this is what I want to do. And people like to be cheerleaders and like to get behind all of that as well. That's just my take on things.
Yeah, totally. And I think as well, as part of this whole kind of, you know, about this is it's all about as well kind of not working on your own, and also kind of creating a sense of community. So that's creating a sense of community with your customer base, you know, and kind of keeping them informed and kind of getting their feedback and taking their feedback on board to kind of create better and more improved products, or how you can kind of work better, you know, create better processes within your businesses. But also, you know, this whole kind of sustainability or sustainable movement isn't about, you know, us kind of going out and kind of going, I'm going to become a sustainable brand and I'm going to basically create a whole new range of products. But it's maybe looking around you and looking at other brands, other businesses, and how, you know, what materials or what kind of production, and, you know, and kind of coming together and sharing expertise, materials, cross collaboration is another way, you know, and it's quite a cost-effective way as well of kind of, you know, raising your profile and kind of showing your sustainable credentials, you know, to the wider public, so to speak, kind of going forward. And I think, you know, Fran, you know, what's your thoughts around, you know, I know you're quite big around kind of sustainability and kind of creating communities for the future, so to speak. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think the idea of community is really, really important. I mean, now more than ever, it's become, you know, where the only place we can go. I'm not planning on venturing on the tube anytime soon. So, you know, suddenly being faced with what's on my doorstep more than I ever have been makes you realise how that kind of disconnects happen. You know, we've kind of all gone online, and yes, so to speak, you know, if you weren't an online business at the moment, you're not a business at all. And that's kind of how the cookies crumbled over the last few months. But more and more people are really wanting to know what's going on around them, what's, you know, and that can be a source of supply chain as well. Like what, you know, kind of industries are around you, what's their kind of byproduct. Start thinking about what you can actually get hold of very, very local. And that also goes in terms of your customer. You might be able to solve a very local problem, and that could be a really viable USP, a really viable niche that you can tap into just by kind of socially listening, but in a very kind of small sense. You know, what isn't about, what can you fill the void of? And part of that, you know, especially going onwards from 2020, is thinking about being there and being in the right place. And one thing we've definitely seen with kind of the kindness economy as well is thinking about especially kind of women's workers, and thinking about, you know, the idea of childcare and the idea of being paid for you know, handcraft or what we'd call like trades work. And traditionally those haven't, you know, warranted the pay or even the recognition. And, you know, there is a kind of a feminist aspect to sort of community work as well, and you've got to kind of be mindful about those lives and about the idea of maternity pay and those aspects as well of childcare. So I'm really, really pro the businesses that are coming up now that are considering that as part of their business model as well, and thinking about, you know, the people as well as the planet, and really kind of drumming up support for their workers from those perspectives as well, and making sure that you know, they're not the bottom of the pile in all the decision making, and they're not the bottom of the pile in terms of the wages as well. So it's almost like that aspect of the business model also needs to kind of be uncovered, especially at a community level as well.
Yeah. And I think from Bella, you've done quite a lot of this whole kind of bringing together lots of brands and kind of creating your own little ecosystem community around you. Want to tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so I think, you know, like, first of all, community is, you know, really, really important for us. So where we're based in Belo Horizonte, Brazil, like, even our name is like from Belo. So it's like part of, you know, where like our heart of our company is, where we make our product. And then, you know, the other part of our heart is over here in the UK, where, you know, we start off with the design, but we do lots of like marketing and selling and things like that. So I think what was really important for us, and again, maybe it's because we have a completely different perspective in terms of our previous jobs, you know, like working at NHS and things like that, where it's a lot of teamwork and celebrating your team members. For us, it felt, you know, natural, because when you wear a product or when you buy a product, you're wearing something that represents someone who's like really worked hard to make it. And we really, really believe that these people shouldn't be ignored. They've got skills that are insane. Like, a lot of us in the community, maybe after lockdown, you know, lockdown, people are getting a bit more, you know, a bit more handy on the old sewing machine. These guys have got insane skills and knowledge because they've been working with materials, you know, for so many years. So working as a design, you know, like, we might start conceptualizing, but we discuss with the team. You know, we make sure that they feel valued and respected, and we work with them to try and make the best quality product. I don't think there's any like I in team. I think, you know, like, everyone's worked together to create the product. And like, one of the ways that we like to celebrate our team is by like naming the bags, either by the volunteers that work at our partner charity or by the team that made them. It's one of our way of like being able to tell the story of the people behind our business, because it's not just me and Maria. We've got like we wouldn't be able to do what we do without these incredible people that work with us. And I think, you know, I'm talking about my business, but I think it's something that's really special because it's helped us develop an even more amazing product. We've been able to, you know, build such beautiful relationships and work out what, you know, if there's any problems, if there's anything that we can try and resolve, we work together. And we've worked together during COVID because, you know, we are a small business, but to still keep manufacturing going, but making sure that everything's safe. So we've been talking to them, and, you know, we've been putting updates on our blog and on our emailing marketing list to make sure that people know that these people are safe. And I think that's something that's really lovely, because then our customers, or, you know, they're our family really, you know, our From Bello family they know everything that's going on, and they feel that they're part of it, and that disconnect is hopefully, you know, closed. They feel really connected with the products and the people and where it's come from, and learning about how things are made. And I feel that even more so now, like Fran said, with lockdown, and how we've had time to actually stop and think and reflect, you know, and actually have the time, rather than being really, really busy, to know where things come from and actually think about community. I think it's really important. You know, I want to know now, like, whenever I buy something, where's it come from? How's the impact going to be? And that's me as a customer, rather than, you know, as a businesswoman working on it. And I think, again, with like when we think about like maternity leave and, you know, childcare, these are all things that we expect over here, you know, and we should expect that for our supply chain as well, you know, to be able to a world where everyone's kind of equal. We're fighting towards equality throughout, you know, the whole of the production. But yeah, so I think that's things to really think about when you're working through this like with your company, and how can you do things better, and how can you communicate that to tell people why, and that again all gets integrated into your price.
So I think we're kind of near enough there on time, ladies. I think we've given quite a lot of tips and some insights and our experiences and so forth. Just to kind of round off, for us to each kind of give one last tip, in terms for our listeners out there. You're still there. Hopefully you are. What kind of what's your tip kind of going forward in terms of the sustainable, how to kind of create a sustainable business, not got that much budget. What would you say? Right.
Yes, actually, one tip was that we didn't really look at was thinking about if you are going for investment, just to remember that idea of that kind of growth at all costs is kind of become very unsavory for investors now. So actually putting your storytelling of your brand front and center, and putting the longevity of your brand front and center if you're looking for investment, and the sturdiness of your company. So the idea of risk and opportunity, really, if you are going to be putting forward for investment, because one thing's for sure that we've learned recently is that the sturdiness of a brand is worth far more than its growth, and part of that is paying your brand. So pay your brand a wage, and that's part of this, is making sure that in the kind of the sustainability, we talk a lot about the people and planet, and Charlotte spoke wonderfully about profit as well, but it is about that idea of being able to sustain. So if you pay your brand a wage and you keep your brand secure for everybody that's in that brand, and everybody that loves that brand, including the customers, that's also should be part of what you're putting forward in your business model if you are looking for investment as well.
Brilliant. Thank you, Fran. And Charlotte?
I think my biggest tip would be, apart from the whole math side of things and making sure that you know that your business is viable, if you know that, be confident with your beliefs, be confident to, don't be scared to really put yourself out there with your company and share your thoughts and opinions, which can be really quite, for me, I get quite scared, like I never want to be an influencer or anything like that. I think it's really important that you really are true to your brand ideals and what you want to be, because if you're haven't got your heart 100% in what you believe in, and it's wishy-washy, people won't connect with you, and that, what's the point? So even if you are 100% in there and you're a bit scared, just really work on like how to communicate that and be confident with it as well, because you know what you're talking about, and you've been working hard on this brand, so you need to be able to deliver that confidently, and then people will they'll want to learn more and they'll want to know more from you.
Brilliant. And my last one is, don't be scared to find your niche. I think everybody, when they kind of start up a business, it's kind of like, as Fran was saying, trying to grow sales and get lots of sales, but actually it's ultimately trying to find your customer, and kind of being true to that customer, because if you find your customer and you have your values and your beliefs and your business ethos, those customers will continue to stay with you for the longevity, which means that you then don't have to kind of go off and kind of be on this vicious circle, this hamster wheel of trying to find more customers, but actually, find your niche and just be really good at what you do in that niche. Definitely. Yeah. Great. Well, I think that's kind of everything. Wow, we kind of covered that in like 45 minutes or so. Yeah, there's quite a lot of stuff when we was kind of talking about it. It's like, oh my God, we're coming through this. But actually, we've kind of covered a lot. So, thank you very much, guys, for being on board today, Charlotte and Fran, and coming in and hosting this event with me. Thank you to you and to those of you who are listening to this. I hope you found it very useful and insightful. Some tidbits and some tips there for you to take away and to kind of think about your business. The thing about sustainability, it isn't for everybody. So don't feel pressure that, this is the thing, this is what I need to do. Because you know what? No one's going to look at your business negatively if you are not chasing the sustainability thing or any aspect of sustainability. Ultimately, what we're looking for is for companies to be true to their business and true to who they are. You know, and we're just looking for authenticity at the end of the day, regardless of that sustainability or whether that's just running a business. So thank you very much. You know, if you want any further information, my details I think are on the website with Harrica's gift there. So we hope to see you soon. If you've got any questions, drop us a line. Thank you and have a nice afternoon. See you later.
Bye. Thank you.